Hey everyone, before I start this actual video, I just wanted to say that I was in the middle of editing this project when the announcement that Epic was going to be made into an animated film came out, and maybe by the time of posting there'll be more news on that, but I am aware, and I was aware while I was making this, that Epic the musical wasn't gonna be made the way I thought it would or wanted it to. Um, yeah. That being said, I also don't want all the work I put into this, to go to waste, so I hope it's a fun little thought experiment and enjoy.
Hello gods, monsters and mortals, and welcome back to Elusia Studios, where we bring you absolutely unhinged Greek mythology content. Today, we're going to be talking about one thing, Epic the Musical. And the very important question, Epic the Musical, can it be done? Now, I know there have been fan-made productions, I know there are animatics, I've seen a lot of them. But when I say can it be done, I ask as someone in the musical theatre industry, can we put it on professionally? Is Epic the Musical going to continue to have its huge impact on the theatrical stage? I've just got to say, making this video while finishing drama school has been a wild ride, and I've gone through 3 different iterations at this point because there are so many things to cover in this one question, plus life stuff that I almost gave up. But I did not spend 121 hours adapting this album into a workable script for nothing. So here we are. Regardless of this, whether this is even a good idea or not, buckle up, because we're about to go for a wild ride as we imagine what Epic the Musical would look like on a stage. Part 1, Characters and Cast. I bet you thought we were going to read the script, weren't you? Wrong. We're going to talk about our cast. The reason I bring up the cast first is that Epic the Musical, the concept album, has 38 different characters with distinct lines. The full voice acting cast is even bigger than that and has some awesome voice actors in it, including characters from verses or songs that were cut from the main album, and many songs also have huge ensemble parts that aren't included in the 38. For the uninitiated, you non-musical theatre kids, your average musical features around 20 performers, including your leads, supporting characters, and chorus and ensemble. For example, Hadestown had 14 members of its original Broadway cast. Legally Blonde usually has around 28 to 30. It had 28 in the run that happened last year in Australia. Hamilton had 22 in its original Broadway cast. Epic the Musical so far, when you start counting, looks a bit like 38 characters plus 20 chorus members who aren't part of that, which makes 58 cast members. So, as you can see, the Epic the Musical cast is already very, very big. So, obviously, there's no way we can fit all of those people on the stage. Go home. Unless we doubled up our characters. To make the show work, to have enough voices for all of the chorus parts, we need around 20 chorus members total. And yes, some of these can include our minor character parts, but we also need to double cast some of our more major characters just to make this show workable, because no one likes a crowded backstage. Obviously, we can't double up Odysseus. The man can't be everywhere at once, people. But here are the double roles I propose. First, Eurylochus, Act 1, and Antinous, the main suitor, Act 2. The villain arcs mirror each other, and scene-wise it works because there's some space between any scenes where Eurylochus may appear in the second act. Another major one is Polites, Act 1, becomes Telemachus, Act 2. Yes, this is pulling a John Lawrence Phillip on everybody. But it makes sense because for Odysseus, his open-armed friend who he couldn't save becomes his son, who he must save. And also voice-wise, they're in a similar tenor range. I would also double up Circe in Act 1, becomes Hera in Act 2 in God Games. They're both queenly figures, and I think character-wise it would absolutely make sense for whoever was cast. Another double up I would make is Siren 1, being the main siren who pretends to be Penelope in Song 22, Suffering, then becomes Aphrodite in God Games. This is a reference to Aphrodite rising from the sea in her creation myths, and also it just shows how the gods love randomly messing with Odysseus, because that's also a thing. Another double up I would make is simply because of how Jorge made these characters sound on the album, and these two characters are sort of one role because they always appear together. But the Lotus Eaters in Act 1 become Zephyr and Eurus in Acts 1 and 2 because they appear in both. Zephyr and Eurus are the names of the west and the east winds, which are both mentioned in the Odyssey, and they serve as like attendants / backup dancers to Aeolus, guardian of the winds. Double up number, whatever number we're on, is Poseidon and Polyphemus. Timing wise, these two roles work because Poseidon doesn't appear until after Polyphemus is slain. And given that Polyphemus is Poseidon's son, it makes sense for them to sound similar as played by the same actor. I'll go into how that would exactly work, given that Polyphemus is a giant cyclops. But we will talk about that later. I have two more double ups I want to talk about. The first being Cassandra / Scylla. Scylla being the people-eating monster that ate 6 of Odysseus's crew, and Cassandra being the Trojan princess. I know what you're gonna say. What do you mean Cassandra the Trojan princess is in Epic the Musical? Am I going crazy? Did Jorge write another song? What? The answer is she's not. She's not even really in the Odyssey. She's you could argue that she's in a scene that doesn't happen in Epic, but she only gets mentioned in the texts surrounding the fall of Troy and the Aeneid, not the Iliad or the Odyssey. But anyhow, Cassandra doesn't really exist in Epic, but she is a role I created to get around a special effects issue that I will talk about later. And when you discover exactly what I have in store for her, you will see why it makes sense. The other sort of major double up is as follows. Elpenor / Apollo / Suitor 3. Who is Elpenor, you ask? Elpenor is literally just a guy. He used to have a verse in Song 18, The Underworld, that Jorge had to cut because it was just so funny. It was hilarious. A guy who managed to survive everything that they'd all been through up until Circe's island. And then on the day that they're leaving, he gets drunk, he falls off a roof and dies. And then they don't notice that he's not there until they get to the underworld and his shade is there. And he's like, guys, what the fuck? It's too funny. Oh, it's so hilarious. Anyway, there are a few lines between when Polites dies and the end of the Circe saga that I need a specific sailor to be able to say, and it gets confusing if you label them with numbers, so I have a named role for it. And then that character disappears from the living crew after the Circe saga because I love working in random little references that no one else is going to notice. Now, the reason he's Apollo is because Apollo in Epic is also just a little guy. Of course, if Dionysus had been in God Games, that would have been even funnier and I would have cast him as Dionysus. But that's not the point. The point is him being dead for those couple of sagas makes it easier for him to quick change and then be in God games. Like I said, it does get confusing when you label roles with just numbers, which is why I know that Suitor 3 isn't a very clear name. But in Odysseus's final fight scene, most of the suitors have individual lines. In total, there are about 7 different solo voices on the album, and they're labeled in order of appearance when they first have their lines. Suitor 3 in particular is the one who sings this verse.
Oh, King, our leader is dead. You've destroyed the serpent's head.
Blah, 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 blah,
Now the
blah.
rest
Whatever.
of us are...
This guy actually does have a name, I think. I can't find it for the life of me, but this suitor reminds me of this one character in the Odyssey who, when Odysseus was pretending to be a beggar to get back into his house, Odysseus warned him away because he was about to murder everyone. And he warned this character specifically because he was the son of someone he knew, and he knew that the family was sensible, reasonable people, except he didn't leave and then he ended up getting murdered. Which parallels a little bit Elpino. You can also double up those who sing the other gods' parts with the suitors in combinations such as Ares / Suitor 7 or Hephaestus / Suitor 5. This brings down our speaking cast, i.e. the specific characters, not including any of the ensemble. It brings it all the way down to 26, which is on kind of the high end, but it's not unreasonable. We do still have to think about the ensemble. We always have to think about the ensemble. They are some of the hardest working people and they never get enough credit. And the thing about Epic is that you're going to need 3 different choruses within your ensemble. The reasoning behind this is that you won't be able to double up female and male choruses in a production like Epic because the entire world and the premises that it functions on is so divided by gender roles. For example, in Hadestown and Hamilton, it doesn't really matter what gender or gender presentation most of the ensemble members are, because as long as there are enough voices and dancers for the scenes, the production still stands. However, in productions such as Legally Blonde or Grease, similar to Epic, there needs to be both female and male choruses, such as the Delta New Girls in Legally Blonde. Oh my god. Anyway, the reason there are different choruses that present as feminine or masculine in the shows is because gender roles are important to the story and the context of it in some way. In Hamilton, yes, it was set in the 17 and 1800s, and the main characters are quite divided by gender roles, but the chorus aren't because of the way they've constructed the show. With Epic, you can't really do that. The reason we have 3 choruses instead of 2 is because Odysseus is often tormented by the voices of the dead and or enemies or monsters. So where we have so many male ensemble members on stage as soldiers / sailors, they might also need to fight off Trojans or see their dead comrades in the underworld, and so you have those 2 choruses that are somewhat interchangeable, but it's just 2 separate groups within that. Odysseus's crew also gets whittled down over the course of the first act, and so you don't have to have too many in the 3rd group at the start. But if we include all the named roles that can also double as ensemble members in other parts of the show, we only need 8 additional masculine cast members outside of what we already have in our list. Applying the same logic for the feminine cast members, that brings us down to 4 additional feminine cast members, and thus the math. We have 26 named characters, plus 4 feminine chorus plus 8 masculine chorus equals 38 people, which isn't unheard of. Wicked, which is one of the bigger productions out there, usually has around 42 cast members, and there are other musicals that have huge casts as well. 38, including chorus, we can work with. Part 2, the set. I know. You're all asking, E1, when are we gonna read the script? Get on with it already. The thing is, with a musical like Epic, there's a lot of songs that are highly dependent on location. There are many fight scenes. Most of the first act, they're traveling through a lot of different locations very quickly. And a good deal of what you can do for each song is limited by what you're able to do with your set and in your space. The reason I discuss the set now is because so much of whether this musical can be done and done well comes down to safety. How do we safely orchestrate all these settings and scenes and fights while making it feel real for the audience? At what point do special effects become too much and too big that it doesn't actually suspend the disbelief? Epic the Musical has 12 distinct locations. I say 12 because I'm counting the ocean in general as one location. And somehow, to get this production working, we have to make a set that works for all of them. Which is exactly what I did. This is the digital set of Epic the Musical that I built with the magic of computers. We have a balcony, we have stairs with platforms that attach to the balcony but also can be moved around to make different settings. This will be very relevant. To comply with safety regulations, the balcony has railings all around, and entry and exit are from the back rather than from the sides on the balcony. There are also exits from underneath the balcony, as another feature of this set is, ta-da! Projection screens. Or projection sheets, rather. Fabric that is used to project onto. There are also set pieces that can be taken on and off stage that I will mention later as they are used. I did consider other options when designing the set, and yes, this script absolutely still could be done with a different version or a different design of the set, but there are certain elements that you would need to keep, such as a balcony for settings such as the island in the sky or the Palace of Ithaca. There are other options for how to make a set that works for all these different locations. There's a set such as the one that's used in this pro shot of Legally Blonde, where you have all these different moving set pieces that are small but have the details of each different location. This, while very effective, is not very safe, especially when we're dealing with all the fight scenes, and there will be weapons. There will have to be weapons in this. There's the Hamilton and Hadestown option, where you have an unspecific set that is transformed by the actors, the lighting, the space, that works for every single location. This doesn't necessarily work for Epic because we are in a heightened fantasy setting and we have some locations that can't necessarily be created just from a stage. In this version of the set, we have the best of both worlds. We have enough dynamic to have it become anything. We have projector sheets, we have balcony and underneath the balcony and different parts of the stage. So it can become anything, but we also have enough detail for it to be specific. Again, the reason I walked you through the set before we get to the script is the way I wrote Epic as a script is so dependent on the space you're using and what you have. This is the space I'm using. Thus, you can imagine it with me as we go through part 3, the script. Script! Look at this thick boy. You might wonder how exactly one takes a concept album and turns it into a musical script. The answer to that is you listen to the concept album far too many times. You become really, really annoying about Epic the Musical. You finish the script and try and make this video about 5 fucking times. In all seriousness, most of the work I did when I wrote the script was to be the dramaturg for Epic. Because where Jorge Rivera Heron's songwriting is excellent and he has such a rich sound that is so thoughtful about how he layers the instrumentals and vocals depending on the setting and the characters, the same can't be said for the dramaturgy. And look, this video wasn't made in criticism of Epic. There's plenty wanting in terms of character choices and adaptation choices when you're taking a 12,109 line poem and turning it into a 2.5 hour musical. But taking the concept album as a complete story is difficult because there are a few major plot holes, and translating that to the stage requires fixing those and adjusting the pacing and tension scaling to suit the medium that we're using. And that's what I'm taking this time to talk to you about. Don't worry, my fellow classics nerds, I have done my best to put back in some of the themes and characters that are present in the original text. When I was putting together this script, I had 3 things in mind. The first was, how can we achieve what's going on in the songs and the story in a way that makes sense? The second was, how can we achieve what's going on in the story in a way that is safe for the actors and the audience? And the third was, how do we show the audience the epic fantasy that is epic? But that third aim came behind the other 2 always. If it doesn't make sense or if it can't be done safely, then the epicness has to be sacrificed. And thus, we begin. Act 1.
Song 1, The Horse and the Infant.
The curtain rises on Act 1 on Odysseus and a group I have dubbed the Soldier Chorus, already on stage, standing on top of the platforms created by pushing the staircases together to form the inside of the wooden horse. When Odysseus declares, "Attack!" These staircases can be pushed apart to form a battlefield. I will keep coming back to the set because it is so important that you guys are going to be sick of me. I put this together in my brain. But then we have our battlefield, we have our Trojans, we have our Achaeans, we have Odysseus fighting his way across all of that. Now, if you've seen the animatics or watched those lyric videos with the stage directions, you'll know that Odysseus gets stabbed. What happens is, Odysseus has a vision of himself getting stabbed by Hector's grown-up son, who's called Astyanax, by the way, which is really not a nice name to sing. And he isn't actually getting stabbed in that moment. So your options are Odysseus gets stabbed or Odysseus doesn't get stabbed. If Odysseus gets stabbed, it means that he's getting stabbed. It's game over. He's lost the fight. He's not going home from Troy. It's going to be pretty hard to come back from that one. So I'm just going to rule that out as an option. Or Odysseus doesn't get stabbed and instead screams, "Ah, what was that?" without anything visibly happening to him. If you're watching this from any angle, that doesn't make sense. Is this man crazy? What's going on? If you were to go with option B, then you'd have to show what it was that Odysseus was seeing when he has his vision. And how do you do that? Do you have people act it out? Do you project it behind Odysseus? But of course, the vision is of someone getting stabbed. There are people getting stabbed all around him. It would end up looking like this, but for people getting stabbed. This is where Cassandra comes in. Instead of getting stabbed, Cassandra finds Odysseus, and with some clever lighting and projections, you can have Odysseus be struck by lightning at the very same moment. And when Odysseus says,
Who was that?
Cassandra and Zeus can answer,
A vision.
This is, of course, excellent because not only is Cassandra a prophet who has visions of the future herself, it also solves the problem of the soprano harmonies that are heard later in this song. This would, of course, require replacing a few of Zeus's lines in this song with Cassandra's, as well as instead of having a choral backing, having it being a duet harmony later in the song. But altogether, the effect looks a bit like this. Now, after Odysseus declares, "I know that I'm ready," and Cassandra says, "I don't think you're ready," in the stage directions, I've written Odysseus pushes past Cassandra and exits. He re-enters on the balcony, finding a cradle. Cassandra runs after him. This is important because it helps with the unity of setting. Later on, switching between the balcony and the base of the stage will indicate different settings, but not here. And so you have Zeus and Cassandra prophesying what will happen if Odysseus doesn't kill Astyanax, and Odysseus and the child will be on the balcony looking over the wall of Troy.
Song 2, Just a Man.
In the script, I've written very little actual stage directions for this song, mostly because whoever you give this to will direct it differently. But this song speaks to the atrocities of what went on at Troy. Odysseus is known as the city sacker. Do you know why? Do you know what the other Achaeans did? Do you know what the other version of this story is, where it's not Odysseus that kills Astyanax and what happens to him? Epic can't shy away from what that means. That being said, my vision is to have Odysseus singing to Astyanax on the balcony while the soldier chorus and Cassandra dance and then later sing with the choral harmonies in the shadows underneath. This way, you can have a chorus member named as Ajax the Lesser drag Cassandra off stage. Neoptolemus can strike at King Priam with his fists. The events of the sacking of Troy can take place in the shadows. This is seen somewhat in other musicals, especially with ones such as Hadestown with the shades, but I'm going to make a lot of use of shadows in epic staging, so be prepared.
Song 3, Full Speed Ahead.
The thing about going full speed ahead on the sea is you kind of need a boat. And there are a few ways to go about creating a boat on the stage. Not a lot of them are very good. The first one is very, how should I say this? Primary school. You get a big, long, propped up piece of wood in the shape of and have it become the ship's prow. I don't like this at all because it limits where we see the characters and it also makes the space smaller. They can be difficult to move, and while stagehands are necessary, and I love you guys, having stagehands put on and take off the boat from the stage every single time is distracting. So I'm just gonna say no. The second option I've seen done is you have a huge rectangular platform with the edges, and it's quite low down, but it has like a hole in the middle. I couldn't find the pictures from the production I've seen this in, but this design allows the actors to sit down in the boat and also stand on the edge so you can see what's going on the whole time. But again, there's still not enough space for the bigger scenes that happen on the boat, and it's difficult to move. It also doesn't very much look like an old-timey, like a great long boat. The third option is one I have experienced myself. I got to drive the boat. It was great. In that you have a literal boat on wheels that can be driven around, and like the boat doesn't have the round bit at the bottom, it's like cut off. They're not that difficult to assemble, actually. You can make them from Arduinos and a controller, which is how I drove the boat. The problem with this one is it's not super stable, and the bigger the boat is and the more people that are on it, the heavier it is. And the heavier it is, the more difficult it is to move, and the more likely it is that with one little movement, everyone falls off the stage and injures the front row. Our boat still needs to be movable, though, because we need to be able to get it on and off stage, because we switch from land to sea all the time. So none of those are going to work for Epic. Now, other set designers with more experience than me, because I am first and foremost an actor and performer, may choose to do this differently. But this is my proposed solution. You have two very small flat platforms mounted on wheels. You have a prow and a stern, and there's like a step on each of them at each end and nothing else. They're light, they're easily movable, they're not going to limit the space, and you can have more than one ship in the space. They can be moved apart to expand it or moved in to contract. They can also be rotated so we get the different angles of the ship without blocking anyone or even the projections behind. I don't know if this has been done before. Admittedly, there aren't a whole lot of musicals or plays that need a boat set piece, but with two sturdy steps that look like a prow and a stern, we don't need to block any space for the sides. Our fleet of 600 men can enter with their boat, do a cool dance on a boat, no problem.
Song 4, Open Arms.
Most of this song is just Odysseus and Polites wandering around the stage, which is now the island of the Lotus Eaters. I haven't included many stage directions other than timings of entrances and exits. A lot of this will be up to directorial choices, just because different theatres have different placements, that sort of thing. In this version, because I am not using a backdrop-based set, and we will not have whole ass trees that we will move on and off stage because they're a pain. Because of that, I've also said in the stage directions that the Lotus Eaters get branches with the fruit on them and then hand them out towards Odysseus and Polites, which is a props department thing and can be easily sorted. There's also a little dialogue exchange between Odysseus and Eurylochus at the end of the song, where Odysseus tells the whole crew to sail onwards, and Eurylochus asks what happens on the island, mostly because it makes sense, but also so we can have a transition into
Song 5, Warrior of the Mind.
So, Jorge has done a clever thing with Athena's existence in Epic, where she has her own little realm that's in the animatics sort of based on an hourglass, and whenever she and Odysseus speak, it's in there. This, I assume, is a nod to Athena being the granddaughter of Kronos, and it also explains why the other sailors can't see her, because she's a mythical invisible presence. It's a very simple trick that will smooth things over for people who haven't read the Odyssey or the Iliad or any of the texts and don't really get what's going on when gods such as Athena appear, because a lot of the time they appear as mortal characters and only some can recognize them. It's a whole thing in the texts that you can read and research yourself. The issue is, when you're on a stage, you can't just have everyone leave and then come back on when they're supposed to be there the whole time. So instead of Athena having her own mini realm where all the sailors disappear, in this song, the chorus is still there, but they're in the background. She's controlling them. They're acting out the story she's telling. Odysseus kills a boar in his youth, but they're reenacting it. The boar is just two chorus guys. It's a neat trick that doesn't involve a pig, because where were we going to get a pig from? You can also do some fancy lights and projector changes to signify when they're in the present on the boat and when Athena's just filling us in on all the backstory, which will come in handy later. The other thing I want to highlight is this. This is not bad script writing. I know this is a drama performance. I know they all exit dramatically. This is put there on purpose. The reason this is put there on purpose is because Epic's interpretation of Athena has some elements that, if played seriously, reduce Athena's character into a one-dimensional arc in a way that is ever so slightly problematic. Because that storyline and that reduction is very common for female characters. I can't say that Athena's storyline doesn't make sense in Epic, because it does. It's very coherent. There are just some adaptation choices in her character arc that, when taken all together, rub me the wrong way. They make me squint a little bit. They make me think this was written by a man. And look, I'm not going to go into the issues with those adaptation choices, but when playing Athena differently on the stage, and by writing the stage directions in the way that I have and changing the genre of her arc from angst to comedy, sort of, is a choice I have made in this adaptation. Because when you adapt something, you're also creating art. You're also putting something of yourself into this. This is my adaptation, and I am giving my interpretation as an artist in the way that only I can. Which is why I've chosen to portray Athena as a teenager. You see, the concept of the goddess of wisdom, someone whose whole career is being strategic, making all the right decisions, not giving into emotions or short-term validation, actually being overdramatic and impulsive and doing things because she gets angry, is so inherently funny. And you know who else is overdramatic, impulsive, and do things for no reason whatsoever except for they're very angry? Teenagers. So, however Odysseus exits, however the chorus exit the stage, Athena has to enter and exit 687 times more dramatically, because that's what angsty teenagers fucking do, okay?
Song 6, Polyphemus.
The issue we have to solve, the issue that anyone who ever does this show will have to solve however they can, the theatre magic of this song and saga that we have to pull off, is the titular Cyclops Polyphemus, who is huge, much larger than our stage. How do we portray a character that can't fit into a theatre? I'm going to take Into the Woods as an example here, because they also have a giant character, namely the giants. And those giants are seen not by a pair of feet, but simply in how the stage shakes and the actors react. That's one way that it can be done. The other way, and this method will incorporate some of the shadow motifs I'm going to use throughout the show, and that is to do a huge shadow puppet. I have seen this used in a theatre performance before as a stand-in for Godzilla, in a show about being genderqueer that I cannot find pictures of for the life of me. It's hilarious. But by using close-up lights and an actor playing Polyphemus from side stage, Polyphemus can appear to be in the scene with Odysseus and his men, even if it is just his legs and hands as shadows. Now, initially, Polyphemus won't be seen, it will just be the shaking. He will exist using the Into the Woods method. As for the wine, whatever prop used can then be lifted up using a rope or wire at the same time as we might get a shadow of a hand. For now, that is, but we won't see him quite yet.
Song 7, Survive.
Still on the topic of our giant Cyclops, there's a reason I keep mentioning the shadows, and that's because both Polyphemus and his club will be in this song. In this song, he has a club that he used to violently murder some of Odysseus' men. And unlike Into the Woods, where the comment they're making on the nature of storytelling means having the giant not physically exist is more effective. Unfortunately, that is not the case for the terror of our poor soldiers. So when Polyphemus gets his club in this song, he and his club will appear as huge projected shadows that Odysseus and his soldiers can somewhat interact with. And at the end of the song, we can actually see Polyphemus collapse with his shadow, which makes clear to every single member of the audience what's going on.
Song 8, Remember Them.
Now, there's one last oversized thing that we need to figure out, and that is how the club turns into a spear that blinds Polyphemus. How do our cast members interact with it and do it safely? For safety, budget, and aesthetic reasons, I am vetoing having an actual giant club. No. So what other options are there? The first, mime, or something like it. The club does not exist, but they interact with it as if it does. I don't like this one necessarily because I'm not sure everyone in the audience will get what they're doing if there's no actual club. Of course, we do play with shadows with Polyphemus, but you can't really layer shadows, which means this may not necessarily be an option. The second method, in my opinion the better method, is having some of the chorus become the club or the spear. Similar to how they became the boar earlier, if we have some of our guys become the spear, it means the club / the spear exists, and it means that the chorus has some physical theatre things to do instead of sharpening an actual club, which would be very dangerous. And after they use the spear to stab the Cyclops, the chorus guys can then dive roll, which will look very, very cool. Safety! In actuality, I have just put the events that happen in the script and the timing of those events. Special effects are usually up to the director and the team working on it, but that's how I've envisioned it, and that's what the timing has worked out as. The other thing that happens in this song is the other Cyclops coming to check on Polyphemus after he's cried out. How do you show like at least 2 or 3 other Cyclops coming to check on Polyphemus when it's a struggle to even fit one on a stage? When I first started adapting this, I honestly had no idea how to go about it. If none of the Cyclops could exist physically, how do you show the audience that there's more than one with only shaking and sound? If they're shadows, how do you show distance or size? Can you layer projections? How on earth was I supposed to do this? There is a way that this can be pulled off. In Disney's 2025 Australian tour of Beauty and the Beast, which I happened to see, which is where I got the idea, and 24 tours elsewhere, many of the scenes with fantasy elements were played with a sheer screen at the front of the stage. The actors were still visible, but there could be magical elements projected behind them and in front of them. Many audience members found this disconcerting, as lowering and raising the sheer screens could be distracting, and it was like a very visceral fourth wall that further separated the audience from the characters. However, I do think this could work really well for Epic. If there was a sheer screen that could project the legs of the other Cyclops walking by, it can show Polyphemus, the other Cyclops, and Odysseus and his men all at the same time. This sheer screen can be dropped at the beginning of the Cyclops saga, and it would simply seem as if that was the cave setting, at least until the audience sees the other Cyclops and realizes what it's actually for. And of course, when they exit the cave, the screen comes up, as it makes sense. As is mentioned in the script, as is natural for a script, not a lot of the special effects were actually written in, only what has to be seen of the Cyclops and when certain cast members die and make their exit for the scene are explicitly mentioned. But to put this on a stage, it is something you have to think about.
Song 9, My Goodbye.
Again, because I'm not using Athena's little hourglass realm as an exposition technique, because it really doesn't work on a stage, I had to think about how to stage this song differently. Because we're back on the boat in My Goodbye, or at least heading back to the boat, there's going to be some of Odysseus's men there. Instead of having them leave and just letting Odysseus and Athena argue, they're still on stage. How this would work would be up to the director and the dance captain, because I do believe it's best solved with choreography. How it would work in this song is they would go into formation and do a little dance behind whoever was singing at the time. So at first Athena is arguing and they go into formation behind her and do a little dance. And then when it's Odysseus' turn, they migrate over to behind him and make their formation and do a little dance. It also means that when Odysseus says, "You're alone," all of the sailors have gathered behind Odysseus, leaving Athena alone on the stern. Very nice symbolism. Delicious. Hilarious, actually.
Song 10, Storm.
We're not going to have a time skip between these songs where Odysseus and Eurylochus, all of them exit and enter, because that's unnecessary. So between My Goodbye and Storm, I've just added a tiny little bit of dialogue, just so we don't have awkward silence as we transition between the two songs and everything. It's also just some comedic relief between the two sagas, because we kind of need it. Athena makes her incredibly overdramatic exit, and then Eurylochus asks Odysseus, "What was that?" And Odysseus answers in true Athena fashion, "I don't want to talk about it." This conversation is interrupted by a wave rocking the boat and everyone on stage, which covers the transition into the song. Now, the other part of this song is the island in the sky. There's a reason I've designed the set the way I have, and it has a balcony. For an island in the sky, all we need is like a fog machine or to take the projector sheets at the top off. I've kind of added a little bit of extra stage direction because two of the cast members for the next song are going to enter early so that they can help make the special effects happen. Also in the song, there are harpoons. For safety and budget reasons, these will not be actual harpoons. They will not even be the size of actual harpoons, because we do not have the space for that on the stage. They will essentially be long silicone sticks that can't hurt anybody, attached to ropes. And when it says thrown in the script, they will not be thrown. They will look like they are being thrown in a move that looks something like this, which will be caught by one of our sneaky attendants, Zephyr and Eurus, and then be attached to the balcony.
Song 12, Keep Your Friends Close.
After the rope has been secured in Song 11, Odysseus can climb up safely to find Aeolus and their two sneaky attendants, Zephyr and Eurus. The bag itself is just a normal bag, and that part of the scene is fine. Now, I haven't explicitly stated where any of this is going to happen in the stage directions, but when Odysseus climbs back down, Alpinor and Eurylochus will grab the bag and try to open it, and Odysseus will be like, no, don't do that. And then after that, the sailor chorus will be playing Red Light, Green Light with the bag. I mean, I haven't said that's what they're doing, but it's totally what they're doing. Now in the album, I believe when Odysseus is falling asleep at the end of his little thing, I believe it is Penelope's voice that wakes him up by singing,
"Wake up! Wake up! Odysseus, they're opening the bag! Wake up!"
I've decided to change this. Firstly, because Epic has been told in a chronological order, we don't actually see Penelope until the last part of the second act. And although Penelope's grief and the distance that spans between them is a major theme of the Odyssey that isn't explored very much, if at all, in Epic. But that being said, having her and her voice appear now doesn't make sense. I do understand why it's been adapted that way, but for the love of musical theatre, if you're going to make a choice like that, commit to it. If Penelope's not going to be seen until the last part of the second act, then you don't get to know what she looks like or sounds like. It's part of the themes. More on that later. I have decided to make this line said by Athena in voiceover. No, Athena is not actually there. She is still mad at Odysseus. But in this way, we can still have the line. It makes sense because the reason Athena favors Odysseus is because they think alike. And you can even have one of the sailor chorus trying to wake Odysseus up, making it seem like it's just Odysseus's delirium, rather than having it the weird thing with Penelope. And I think it's meant to be divine intervention. Not sure. Last thing with this song, if the bag is just a normal bag, how will the wind bag have any effect? I'm glad you asked. This will be an incredible feat of choreography. The chorus becomes the storm itself, pushing the boat apart and backwards with the wind, entering, causing chaos, and leaving like the breeze. That was song 12.
Odysseus of Ithaca!
Or not.
Do you know who I am?
I had to really think about how to stage Poseidon's entrance for this song. It needs to do justice to the song and his character. It needs to be even more dramatic than Athena, because they fucking hate each other and not just because of the Odyssey. Any way you place the previous song, whether Odysseus is at the front of the stage or the side of the stage, while the sailors play red light, green light with the bag, Poseidon can't enter from those directions. He can't come from the back. I mean, he could, but that would ruin a thing I'm saving for later. He can't come from the balcony because he's rising from the sea. So that leaves the audience? Well, possibly. This will only work in certain theatres, but if there's an orchestra pit, Poseidon can appear at the front of it if you get the right lights on it and walk up from there. Some orchestra pits might need a ladder and others he might just need to climb over, but it will make him look like he's rising from the sea, complete with trident. Alas, not all theatres have orchestra pits, so he may need to burst in from the back of the auditorium. But either way, it's an entrance fitting of Poseidon, and that's what I put in the stage directions. When Odysseus's fleet is drowned, there's a second chorus that enters as the sea chorus and takes some of the sailor chorus off stage. It's designated in the script because they have different lines at that point. At the end of the song, I've also added some very simple dialogue as we transition from one saga into the next. I wanted to show the state of the soldiers / sailors and also break up all the singing by changing the energy a little bit with dialogue. So that's why this is there. The dialogue exchange goes like this. Do you think we lost him? For now we have, but we'll need to find another way home. He won't let this go, that's for sure. I guess all we can do now is move forward, Captain. And row. All we can do is row. And at this point they do exit the stage because we're going onto an island.
Song 14, Puppeteer.
In Puppeteer we have two conversations, or at least two sort of monologues going on at the same time. And I've seen and done shows where this happens in the script, and the only way to effectively do it is to stage it so each person speaking or singing is very obviously in a different setting, on different parts of the stage. And to be honest, I think I just better show you. Costume change. Since we left home, we've faced a variety of foes from a wide range of places. Gods, monsters, you know the roster, hostile creatures that we can resist. But this was a hell of a twist, because we are weak to a power like this. A woman. She had us in just 2 words. She does it from behind the projector sheets, which are also curtains. How cool is that, right? So you have Odysseus and Eurylochus here, and you have Circe here. The other question is, how does one turn men into pigs? And the answer is not actual witchcraft, although I do understand why you would want to. It is these. I've got to say, the Circe saga is probably my favourite saga in this whole album. It's not incredibly dangerous to stage. It has some of the funnest songs. It has Hermes. We deal with gods and witches, but they're not fucking drama queens. The only drama queen in this song is Eurylochus, who I have given a dialogue line before he storms off. I can't help you, Captain, if you do this. I can't go back there. I won't. Leaving Odysseus alone on the stage. Or is he?
Song 15, Wouldn't You Like?
This song, man, I love this song. This song doesn't have much in the way of stage directions or special effects that need to be pulled off, because it's all just in the magic of Hermes and his dancing, accompanied by backup dancers, which are the nymphs. You know what? Why don't I just show you the choreography?
I must say, what a brilliant speech you gave.
Who goes there?
Just a friend who could help you save your men. A foe like Circe's not to be messed with. You want to beat her, you'll need the blessing of a certain god. Divine intervention, someone who's not afraid to send a message. Hermes? Wouldn't you like a taste of the power? Wouldn't you like to use more than words? Deep in the night, the fight lasts for hours. You can be hurt or you can beat her. Wouldn't you like to have some of the magic? Wouldn't you like your outcome preferred? Deep in the night, the fight can be tragic. I'll help you conquer her. She can turn you to an animal that'll end up on a plate. She can all but make you fall in love like you're on your 100th date. She can conjure up a monster that'll grind you to the bones. She has all the ways to hurt you when you take her on alone. Wouldn't you like a taste of the power? Wouldn't you like to use more than words? Deep in the night, the fight lasts for hours. You can be hurt or you can be turned. Wouldn't you like to have some of the magic? Wouldn't you like your outcome preferred? Deep in the night, the fight can be tragic. I'll help you conquer her. In the root of this flower there lies such a power to take her on. You must consume and digest it, then you'll manifest a being of your creation. All you need's imagination, though it's only for a moment. Till you've beaten your opponent.
And I call this route Holy Moly.
Wouldn't you like a taste of the power? Wouldn't you like to use more than words? Deep in the night, the fight lasts for hours. You can be hurt or you can be turned. Wouldn't you like to have some of the magic? Wouldn't you like your outcome preferred? Deep in the night, the fight can be tragic. I'll help you conquer her. Wouldn't you like a taste of the power? Wouldn't you like to use more than words? Deep in the night, the fight lasts for hours. You can be hurt or you can be turned. Wouldn't you like to have some of the magic? Wouldn't you like your outcome preferred? Deep in the night, the fight can be tragic. I'll help you conquer her.
Hermes! Thank you.
Don't thank me, friend. You very well may die. Good luck.
Song 16, Done For?
Most of the stage directions in this song don't differ too much from the logical choices, but I do want to address something that some of you who may be familiar with the animatics might be a little confused about that isn't in the stage show, at least this version of it. And that's these shadow monsters that Circe and Odysseus summon to fight each other. Hermes mentions it in the previous song.
The being of your creation, all you need's imagination.
And I think this is overcomplicated. I haven't changed the lyrics because they don't actually need to be changed. I'm just not going to show any shadow monsters. Circe goes to summon her magic, that's what I've said in the stage directions, and that can look like anything. It could look like some fancy lights. But I am just going to have Odysseus realize that the best way to beat magic users is with normal weapons, and draw his sword and point it at her throat. In response, Circe is going to pull out a smaller knife, but she'll be too slow. She'll still have a blade at his throat, but he has the advantage with the sword. Naturally leads into
Song 17, There Are Other Ways of Persuasion.
There are other ways of persuasion. The first half of this song is just Circe and Odysseus circling each other, which will be spectacular, obviously. And though it was implied on the album, they will go to kiss, and then Odysseus will break away, because that is the obvious and only thing to do. And he'll be a whiny baby about Penelope. I didn't say that, you didn't hear it from me. Odysseus's men enter again when he says, "Wait, you're helping us?" And they pull off their pig masks and they turn back into humans. All except for one, Alpino. I know I've already talked about this character because he's probably the funniest guy in this whole story, except for Odysseus himself, obviously. Anyway, because I'm a classics nerd, one of the soldier sailor chorus who's been there since the Cyclops saga will not be coming back because I feel the need to add stupid details and references that literally no one will notice. The other thing that will need to happen is at the end of this song, Circe actually needs to give them instructions to get to the underworld, so that when Odysseus says, "Circe's instructions were clear," there's no confusion on what the instructions were, or that she gave instructions. These are Circe's instructions. To find the prophet, you'll have to sail from the ocean to the river Styx and down the river Lethe to reach Asphodel, where most of the dead rest. Make no promises on the Styx, for they are unbreakable. There will be souls there that you know, that will haunt you. But no matter what, you must keep moving. If you stop for too long, the Lethe will take your memories. You'll forget who you are, where you came from, and that you were even alive in the first place. And then they have a little further dialogue exchange after that, before Circe leaves, and we bring the boat back on and we sail into...
Song 18, The Underworld.
Also, if the river Styx thing seems random or overcomplicated, it's not, I promise. It's to fix a plot hole later on. Can I just get a round of applause for fog machines? These babies, these magical machines that shroud stages in mystery, style, and most importantly, fog, are the real MVPs. Give it up for fog machines, everybody! And the underworld? This place is going to be full of fog. I have actually written this into the stage directions. The reason being is that the boat with Odysseus and his crew can stay in the center of the stage and appear to be moving through the fog, creating an eerie setting, and then it's the apparitions that move instead. I would have, personally, all the ghosts that Odysseus encounters, Polites, the ensemble that I have dubbed the Dead Chorus, and his mother, Anticlea, dressed in white to blend in with the fog. This may seem a little contrived, but it's effective. By concentrating all the colour in the centre of the stage, it draws the eye to the living crew, creating a sense of just how out of depth they all are at this point. There are other options for how to use the fog. Ghostly hands can reach up out of it. You can have people emerge in the centre of the stage up out of it. That, and as well as the fact that I think they're pretty fucking cool, is the reason I wrote the fog into the stage directions. Anyway, moving on.
Song 19, No Longer You.
At the end of the last song, once the final dum has gone and there's silence on the stage for a second, Tiresias will enter and Odysseus says, "There, moor the ship," before the next song sort of begins, just to make sense of it, you know. This song is where I bring the rock back from earlier and have Tiresias stand on it above the fog. It shifts the status to Tiresias and shows off some very important character details, such as his walking stick and the fact that he's wearing women's clothing. Look, I just need to talk about Tiresias for a second because you all need to know some things. In the myths, there's two versions to his myth. In the one that I'm familiar with, that's Tiresias was turned into a woman for 7 years and then turned back. Not getting into the how or why right now. When he was turned back, Zeus and Hera came to talk to him because they wanted an argument settled. Yeah, they wanted to know whether men or women enjoyed sex more. Zeus said women, Hera said men. When Tiresias said women, Hera lost it and blinded him. Zeus then gave him the gift of prophecy to help with this. Yeah, that's right. Tiresias is blind. So when he's saying, "I see your song of past romance, I see the sacrifice of man," this is hilarious because he can't see shit. Hence the women's clothing and the huge walking stick. Now, to offset the fact that this is objectively hilarious, also tragic, but mostly hilarious, the underworld will still be terrifying. I would have some of the dead chorus in the back play Tiresias' prophecies out in the shadows, but as that is a directorial choice, it's not in the stage directions. But anyway, now you know about Tiresias.
Song 20, Monster.
The ghosts and Tiresias leave Odysseus alone, however, for this song. Sure, you might want to have like creepy hands reach at the curtains at the back for the chorus singing "Monster," but Odysseus will be alone. There's like a solid 2 pages of just Odysseus singing. I haven't specified where the chorus will be in the stage directions because as a directorial choice, some directors might want to have the chorus on there, but I think it's more effective to have just Odysseus alone for this song. And then at the end, a final spotlight on him at the end, in full view. You get it. You get the themes. You know what we're doing.
Song 21, Suffering.
Between these two sagas, I have added some stage directions. I have put them here because there needs to be no dialogue between these two songs. It's not necessary. However, we still need to show the audience what Odysseus did, even if they don't understand the trick yet. Hence why Odysseus will go back to the boat, they'll turn around, and when he sees what's ahead, he gathers his men and they fill their ears with beeswax. They're musical theatre performers. They won't actually fill their ears with beeswax. Odysseus himself might have like a prop earbud that clips on or something, but it will sound terrible if we try and make them sing with stuff in their ears. Just no. But it still needs to be shown. Odysseus can't just brag about a trick he didn't do. That's not like him. He loves to brag, but about stuff that he's done. The other thing that we have to think about is how the siren will be pretending to be Penelope. Pop quiz time! How should we portray Siren 1 as Penelope in this song? Is it A, hire 2 actors that look like each other? Is it B, don't even bother? Or is it C, find a visible way to show the charade without relying on actors' similarity? Time's up. If any of you said anything other than answer C, you're wrong. Bow bow. Look, all musicals need understudies / swings, and there is every possibility that on many nights, even if you do have similar looking people, the cast members might need to fill in for them so they won't all look the same. And it's also entirely possible that you switch cast members halfway through a show, or that they'll get mistaken for the same actor. Plus, this siren needs to play Aphrodite too. Of course, the best and only answer to this conundrum is Penelope's veil. This is, of course, canon to the Odyssey, in that Penelope wears a veil. It's literally mentioned in the first scene she's in that she's wearing a veil. It was a very common thing for noble women, and even sometimes noble men, to wear in ancient Greece. If the siren wears Penelope's veil, it will be clear that she is hiding her face because it's a trick, and that she's pretending to be Penelope. Which means that in
Song 22, Different Beast.
Odysseus can rip the veil off as he ends the whole charade, and it gives the whole thing an actual visible presence. Now, for those of you who might not have seen a production with mermaids in it, we will not be using mermaid skirts. The sirens will be able to move. Now, however the sailors kill the sirens, it should look like whatever the chorus member named as Ajax was doing to Cassandra back in Song 2. Because visual motifs. It's the themes. Also, at the end of this song, there's just like a couple of extra lines of dialogue just to show that there's time passing diegetically. It's just Odysseus saying, set a course for northeast. Sailor says, where are we headed? And Odysseus says, somewhere where Poseidon won't dare to follow.
Song 23, Scylla.
Similar to our Cyclops earlier, Scylla is also a giant monster. So many monsters. How am I supposed to put these monsters on a stage? What do you want me to do? Unlike Polyphemus, Scylla is a giant monster under the sea. She is depicted as a huge sea monster with heads at the end of tentacles that can eat you. Sometimes she has a human torso and head, sometimes not. What's very clear is that she could kill you and eat you, no problem. And as much as it would be fun to have a huge tentacle beast on the stage to eat people, a la Beetlejuice or The Little Mermaid, because of the tone the song is written in, Scylla is much more insidiously terrifying than overtly horrifying, which is why I've chosen to use shadows. Whoever's playing Scylla will be lit from the orchestra pit or the front of the stage, depending on the theatre, as if telling a horror story, casting huge shadows onto the bottom of the stage, and the dead chorus members dressed in Scylla's colours will act as her tentacles, dragging the sailors off stage and into the depths. All of this is in the script, by the way. Of course, 6 chorus members won't be taken, because if we have killed off too many of them to be any more left if 6 chorus members are taken, and we will need alive chorus members for the next song. But there will be 6 torches, and in the stage directions, Eurylochus is the one who hands them out, making him complicit. And that leads to
Song 24, Mutiny.
So the only actual stage directions I've got in here for the first part of this song are when weapons are drawn, and that Odysseus and Eurylochus move apart from each other on the stage. This is a directorial choice, but I would have the remaining sailor chorus do exactly what they did in My Goodbye, and in that they gather behind whoever's singing. And then there's what makes Odysseus pass out. See, if we follow epic animatic canon, Odysseus gets stabbed, and he passes out from blood loss. I assume it's blood loss. He could just be severely anemic, I don't know. And sure, we could do that, but if he passes out from blood loss, that's a pretty fatal wound. I don't know if he would be able to come back from that, which is why I didn't put it in the stage directions. The better alternative is they could keep him alive, putting a blade to his throat and then knocking him out. So our options are Odysseus gets stabbed, or Odysseus gets hit in the head. And for continuity's sake, I'm just going to say that he gets hit in the head, because he literally says, "Ah, my head." That's his literal next line. But before we get to that, there's going to be a much longer pause than is currently in the song. Currently on the album, there are 7 beats between when Odysseus passes out and when he wakes up and says, "Ah, my head." That is not enough time to get the boat out of the way, to change the setting, and bring on the cows. Yeah, that's right, cows. Not actual cows. We're not going to have actual cows on the stage. That would be crazy. No, we're just going to use the same trick as we did with the Circe saga. This is for practicality's sake, so that the cows are real and present and then can immediately get off stage when Odysseus, Eurylochus, and their tiny crew have to run back to the boat.
Song 25, Thunderbringer.
And then, of course, there's Zeus. We said Athena had to be 687 times more dramatic than when she entered and exited than any other character. We said Poseidon had to be more dramatic than Athena. Zeus. Zeus is Athena's father. She had to get that behavior from somewhere. So Zeus needs to have the most dramatic fucking entrance you've ever seen in your life. Zeus is going to enter with a flash of lightning and appear at the top of the balcony. And Odysseus falls to his knees. The whole chorus does. This is the king of the gods. They have every reason to be afraid, which is why both of those things are set in the stage directions. During the intro to Thunderbringer, 2 of the female chorus who are referenced in this song as Zeus's attendants will come on to move our staircases in front of the balcony. This way, as Zeus sings, he can come down the stairs step by step from the sky, which would be terrifying. Of course, that would mean that there would have to be a gate in the railing to the balcony, which is a potential safety hazard. And safety was the second thing on my list, but in this case, it can be built safely enough so that this song can be as epic as possible. This song ends with Odysseus on one side of the boat, his crew on the other, Zeus standing at the top of the stairs with a lightning bolt that flashes across the entire stage, which makes the crew spasm and fall dead. The curtain closes on Zeus standing over everything while Odysseus reaches for Eurylochus's body. Lights out. Okay, if you've made it this far in this video, now would be a good time to pause, get some water, refill your snacks, whatever you need to do, because we're about to get into Act 2! Seriously, if you've made it this far, I am impressed. I have talked for a long time. I am surprised you're still with me. I hope I'm funny enough for you to stick around. Let's dive back into it. Before we start, I just want to talk about something called unity of action. Unity of action, as it relates to theatre, is a concept talked about by Aristotle in Poetics, one of the oldest surviving texts about Greek theatre, which is the origin of Western theatre and musicals. For a play to be effective, to create catharsis, there needs to be 3 things: unity of action, unity of place, and unity of time. Unity of place is having everything take place in the same physical setting, which isn't something that Epic can do because of the nature of the text that it is adapting. Unity of time means that all of the events of the play, specifically a tragedy, because that was what Poetics was talking about, happen over a period of no more than 24 hours diegetically. In terms of Epic or the Odyssey, up until this point, Epic has had perfect unity of action. Every single song has involved Odysseus, our main character. It is his need to get home, that singular action, that has driven the entire musical so far. It has created beautiful, perfect catharsis because of that. Act 2 throws that out the window. While I think it would have been impossible to tell this whole story without destroying the unity of action at some point, I do think there are a lot of missing pieces from the concept album because the unity of action is lost and it gets a lot more confusing. If I didn't know the story as well as I did, I would have been very confused my first few times listening to the last two sagas. So our three priorities from part one are still there, but making things make sense is so much more important because there's so much more to make sense of.
Song 26, Legendary.
Welcome back to our set. Come take a look with me. Act 2 begins in the Palace of Ithaca. Our staircases have been put back. Our projector sheets have been removed, so we see our fancy Greek columns for the first time. A faded banner hangs from the center in the same color that Odysseus's costume was in the first act. I mean, I didn't write that into the stage directions, but that's totally what it should be. Because of the way this adaptation was structured, because it's in chronological order, we haven't seen Telemachus up until this point. His and Penelope's perspective has been entirely precluded from the narrative. There are pacing issues with this later on, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It just means that Telemachus has 3 minutes to make us care about him, because the more we care about him, the more it hurts when he gets punched in the face in the next song. The way I would do this, other than the immediate staging of him being alone on the stage, is to have Telemachus talk directly to the audience. Not a lot of other characters do that. Odysseus does in a rhetorical sort of sense, but I want Telemachus to genuinely ask the audience. If I find this monster, is it you I'll find?
Song 27, Little Wolf.
In this song, both the suitors' entrances and the timing of actions such as the punch are a little bit later than the Street Fighter version you may be used to from the animatics or the stage directions. In this version, the suitors corner Telemachus slowly, firstly to build suspense, to make it seem like he has a chance to try and escape, but also to limit the amount of actual violence we see. You see, we've already had a lot of graphic depictions of violence in this musical already. The last act started with a literal war. For this song, the less actual violence we show, the more impressive it will be. A slow escalation from cornering him to pushing him to Antinous' punch will be much more insidious and effective than him walking up and pushing Telemachus around. Come get it, bruh. Which means that when Athena arrives, Telemachus hasn't been hit yet. He actually gets in the first punch because Athena showed him how. The rest of this song's choreography is Athena doing a move to fight off one suitor and then Telemachus copying it. It's a training sequence and a fight and a budding friendship all in one. The only hit Telemachus will actually take is Antinous' final punch. There will be no blood needed because I don't know if I've mentioned it, but fake blood is a pain. And with a musical like this, the more we limit it, the better. This song, because it is close combat, will need fight calls just as surely as The Horse and the Infant, Different Beast, Mutiny, and 2 further songs in this act will also need regular fight calls. The more we limit the violence, the less chance things will go wrong and endanger the actors, and the less fight calls we have to do before every show. Safety!
Song 28, We'll Be Fine.
This song is so wholesome. There's no violence or intimacy or special effects that I needed to figure out. With the set I have, I would probably place it on the stairs where they're sitting down. And I have put the sitting down in the stage directions, given that Telemachus has just been punched. And then they race up the stairs like little kids as they figure each other out and they do their harmonies. Not just because it's wholesome, but because it ties into the themes. The themes! This song needs some dialogue at the end, though, before we go on to the next one. There are some critical details left out that need to be established before they're mentioned later on. We are talking major plot holes because of things that have been left out. So, I have written a wholesome conversation that establishes where Telemachus is and what he is doing as according to the original text, but suiting the style of Epic. And so at the end of this song, after Telemachus says thanks, Athena goes, "And you're right, I am going to help you." Yes! Sorry. Athena unpins her cloak and gives it to Telemachus. I don't like what those suitors have planned for you. I think it's time you went and sought news of your father. He's alive? Can you tell me where? I can't, but there will be others that can. Go to Pylos and Sparta and see whether they've heard anything of him. There's a ship waiting for you in the harbour. Athena, you really think I'm ready? You're more than ready. And so am I. It was genuinely not that hard. Like, you just needed some more dialogue at the end for like a lot of the rest of it to make sense. And yes, I know that it's a concept album, but a lot of people who listen to it who don't know the story get very confused when we get to the Ithaca saga. But we're not there yet, let's move on.
Song 29, Love in Paradise.
Our next scene takes place on the island of Calypso, a nymph. And for this, we will need our projection sheets back for more than one reason. Which is why it says, Odysseus comes back on and pulls the projection sheets in to make a cave where he can hide. This is a reference to the fact that he lived in a cave on Calypso's island for 7 years. It's also somewhat showing his PTSD because of how he wants to hide in the cave. It also allows the voices that haunt Odysseus to actually be the cast members appearing behind him in the darkness of the cave instead of just voiceover, because it's a better depiction of haunting on a stage. Except, of course, for Penelope, because we haven't seen her, so she will still be voiceover. In the last act, I decided to make Penelope's voiceover line in Keep Your Friends Close Athena's line, because it made more sense for the story. But we are in the present of our narrative now, and Telemachus and his relationship to Penelope has been reintroduced, which is why I think it's more appropriate to keep that line in as Penelope's. Odysseus's cave will come in useful for time transitions as he comes out to do the initial arrival at the island, back in as he does a quick change into 7 years later ragged Odysseus, and up the stairs for the nearly attempted suicide bit. Because we kind of do have a cliff to jump off as the balcony. I do not endorse jumping off cliffs. If this triggers you, please skip this section. I have resources for depression and suicidal thought triggers if you do need, but don't jump off cliffs. Don't even jump off the balcony of our theoretical set. Pushing people off cliffs, though, that I can get behind. Okay, back on topic. Odysseus is on the ledge, about to jump off, and in his cave, again, we have the spirits, or cast members of Polites, Eurylochus, and Anticlea to sing to Odysseus, the saddest man alive. That's a quote from the Odyssey, by the way. Another little piece of symbolism I've added is when Odysseus begs to Athena, Odysseus looks upwards when he's on the balcony, but Athena will be on the ground looking up at him. This is to show, firstly, that gods are not what mortals think they are, but also that in the context of the show, Athena is one of the children. I will address that later. For now, we shall enter
Song 30, God Games.
What an absolute banger of a song. The magic, the fantasy, the gods. This is where our unity of action completely falls apart. We have not one, not two, not three, but 7 different gods in this song, including Zeus and Athena, who are overdramatic on the best of days. Now, I haven't put this in the script per se, but I still want to talk about it. When directing this with actors on stage, the thing that's important to play up in this song is that these people are related. This is Athena's family we're talking about, and there is family drama, alright? Apollo, Hephaestus, and Ares are her brothers. Aphrodite is her sister-in-law, who's married to Hephaestus, cheating on him with Ares. That's another story. And Hera is her mother or stepmother. Epic is not clear about this. In the myths, she's her stepmother. And we all know Athena is very like Zeus, but perhaps even smarter. Due to the illogical nature of some of the arguments, I wouldn't have Athena be as reactive as she's portrayed in Epic, especially in the animatics. I would have her calmly refute each argument, making the other gods seem like they're even more overdramatic. This is funny because she was the one who's being overdramatic earlier. It's for the bit. They're all drama queens. The way I've written the stage directions, once each god has had their interaction with Athena, they exit and go up the stairs to join Zeus on the balcony where he is sitting on his throne. If you're a fan of having said interactions take place in different locations, that's where we use our projection sheets. You can have a music hall for Apollo, a forge for Hephaestus, a lounge for Aphrodite and Ares, a nightclub for Hera, accompanied when backup dancers were needed. Thus, the song comes to a point where Athena has convinced everyone and they're all on the balcony with Zeus and he has his little temper tantrum. This is also something I needed to address because of the whole lightning strike thing. Because Athena does get struck by lightning. So, for those of you who have seen the animatics, the official interpretation of the end of this song goes something like this. And look, I'm gonna be honest, this part is incredibly difficult to stage. It's very anime, very dramatic, very cinematic, but not great for theatre. Firstly, there's no good way to place it with the set I designed, and while there's absolutely other set designs, it's still difficult because no matter where you stage it, if you do it like it has been done in this animatic, one of them will be blocking the audience. And then there's the matter of fake blood and applying it that quickly and how she would even do that. It also doesn't serve the story. Like we heard in the last song that goddesses can't die, but somehow they can be mortally wounded. It's not very consistent, and Athena doesn't need to be mortally wounded to realize her mistakes or repent to her father or do any of that. If you need to be mortally wounded to realize your mistakes, you must be very dumb indeed, like Alpino. Ultimately, dialogue is going to be more effective than the actual end of the song. Athena doesn't need to beg. She's smart. She and Odysseus are the same. She is going to trick her way out of this. You can have funny dialogue or dramatic dialogue, but either way, it just needs to wrap up Zeus's temper tantrum with him ruling in Athena's favor. A good funny one is... What the Tartarus, Dad? I'm sorry. You're sorry. Really? That's it? Fine. I'll let your little saga hero go. He's been stuck on that nymph's island for far too long anyway. That hurt! You could also have... Why would you do that to me? Are you alright? No. Nor is he. Nor are any of us if you keep destroying everything with no consideration of who rightfully owns things. Oh, I am the one who rightfully owns things. So are you gonna let that island nymph keep something she does not own and you might? You are right, daughter. I'll release him, but you must help him home. The one I ended up using goes like this. Is she dead? Athena picks herself up off the ground and dusts herself off. Ouch, Dad! I'm sorry that hit you. I genuinely don't know why I expected any better of you. It wasn't meant to hit you, it was meant to scare me. Fine, I'll release your little saga hero if that's what you want, but there's no guarantee that Poseidon will let him get home. I'll deal with Uncle Poseidon. He has a lot to answer for after all. Athena exits. Not even a thank you, kids these days. Which is hilarious. I mean, come on, guys. The reason I went for the comedy route is we're about to head into the Vengeance saga and the Ithaca saga, which is high tension, high emotion all the way through. We've just come from a song where the main character attempts to commit suicide. On stage, it will be a lot, and we just need a bit of lightness to break it up, to give us something to bounce off the very heavy scenes.
Song 31, Not Sorry for Loving You.
This isn't an analysis video, but I think this song is really beautiful because not a lot of adaptations portray Calypso with a lot of compassion, and the epic fandom certainly doesn't treat her with much. And sure, this version of Calypso is more than a little delusional, but this song is written so beautifully because it shows that she's aware that A, Odysseus doesn't love her, B, she went about it wrong, and C, the reasons why that is. Yes, it's phrased childishly, but her character has been shown in Epic to be quite childish. And she does show some growth and remorse, which doesn't really happen in translations or adaptations of the Odyssey a lot. I mean, she even gets a moment to say, "Let me speak," because Odysseus straight up is not listening to her. It is because she is childish, because she is socially a child, that this adds to the story and contributes to the theme that keeps cropping up about growing up and bringing generations back together. More on that later. To be honest, the only actual changes I made to this song is because Odysseus needs a boat. More specifically, a little raft, not an actual boat that he had before. There are some chorus members who enter and bring him pieces to assemble so that Odysseus has something to do while Calypso's going on her monologue. Because, like I said, he won't be listening. Also, just to be clear, we're all aware that his little "I love you, but not in the way you want me to" is a lie, right? This man is a lying liar and we love him for it. We're all very clear on this, right? Good.
Song 32, Dangerous.
It's our boy Hermes again! Oh my god, I love Hermes. Again, this song needs very little in the way of special effects or even stage directions. Just Hermes himself is special enough. We have Hermes and we have his backup dancers, which this time, instead of a whole group of nymphs, are just Zephyr and Eurus with the wind bag instead of the nymphs with the moly. The only difference is that this time Hermes emerges from the sky on the balcony and comes down the stairs to dance. And, of course, the choreography. I mean, you know what time it is. It's choreography time!
600 men, 600 deaths under my command, 'cause I had one goal in mind. No fleet, no band, only this raft that I made by hand. How will I reach my homeland? All you have to do is not open this bag. Hermes? Hello, old friend. So you're the one who talked to Calypso. Why are you here? You're being given a final option. Consider this your one last chance to make it back home and abandon caution. Wash it away like the blood your hands have known. I know if you dance with fate, then I know you'll enhance your state. If your plan's so great, then why'd you wait to say it? Well, it's a little bit dangerous, my friend. You need a mindset change for this. You cannot get away with playing safe for this. You wanna get home, put it all on the line and put your whole brain in it. Remember every trick in your domain for this. You gotta treat it like it is the main
Alright, I'm in. What do I do?
First up, uncharted waters. When lost, look towards the sky. Follow the North Star, no matter how far you think you're going. You keep on rolling. When strangers look around the aisle, when danger greets you with a smile, fight your way through, do what you must do. But no matter what, keep moving. It's gonna be dangerous, my friend. You need a mindset change for this. You cannot get away with playing safe for this. You wanna get home, put it all on the line and put your all red in it. Remember every trick in your domain for this. You gotta treat it like it's the main event. You wanna get home, put it all on the line, be dangerous. And lastly, the win back. We went through so much to get this. Keep this bag closed if you wanna get home, sir.
You won't get another time to try.
The raging storm inside won't let you get closer.
It was meant to stop you by design.
Cause no mortal can pass Poseidon's storm. Open this bag and you'll never make it home. You'll never make it home.
Don't you know that danger is my friend? My whole life I've trained for this. I cannot tell you how much I have paid for this. I have to get home, put it all on the line. I'm gonna use ruthlessness, every trick, every skill put to use for this. I plan to put an end to all the foolishness. I have to get home, put it all on the line, or be dangerous. Hermes, thank you.
Don't thank me, friend. I'm not the one who fought for you.
Then who?
Good luck.
Song 33, Charybdis.
The interesting thing about the placing of Scylla and Charybdis' songs in Epic is that Scylla and Charybdis are at two ends of a strait between islands. It's actually a real place. It's called the Strait of Messina. And if you avoid one, you're sure to run into the other. And if you know anything about that going into it, you'll know that Odysseus is just going back the way he came. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. I actually think it mirrors other myths and it's good for the shape of the story. It just isn't mentioned because Jorge didn't think it was important enough to point out. I haven't gone in and said anything about it either because it's not actually necessary for the plot, but now you all know. But this brings us to our third giant monster. Like Scylla, Charybdis is an underwater monster. Unlike Scylla, Charybdis is a giant whirlpool rather than something with fangs. Truthfully, there's only really one way to depict a whirlpool on the stage, and that is to create it with dancers. The other way, of course, is to do a blue parachute, but that's so primary school. Come on, we're professionals here. I cannot clone myself and thus cannot show what this would look like, but it is written into the script that all of the chorus, and I mean all of them, are in this song dubbed as the sea chorus. If Odysseus's raft is light enough, he and it can be lifted around the stage as they form the whirlpool. Then he gets down as he sings the positive refrains of this song. He has hope. The audience have hope. Suckers!
Song 34, Get in the Water.
So, what I did at the end of the last song is I wrote that the sea chorus don't exit, they instead gather behind Odysseus to hide Poseidon's entrance. Because Poseidon is coming from behind Odysseus, I have changed the dialogue at the end so Poseidon says found you instead of there you are, and also postponed Odysseus' reaction because he kind of needs something to react to. Poseidon still calls him a coward though, don't worry, that's still in there. The way I've envisioned this song, and this somewhat comes through in the stage directions, involves our stairs. The glorious stairs of this set that can move around and become anything from a wooden horse to a stairway to heaven. I mean, a stairway to Olympus, but you see what I did there, right? One of these staircases Odysseus will climb as the sea chorus the water that he's supposed to get in will be clawing up after him and rising. The tension is rising as well. And then on the other staircase, Poseidon will climb and he will command the sea chorus to rise from the other side. Odysseus can then be caught at the top of his stairs when Poseidon gets him and dragged down by the sea chorus. The idea might be simple, but the stairs will get the message across.
Song 35, 600 Strike.
So, 600 Strike. I want to preface this by saying that no matter my personal opinion of this song, we're all allowed to not like songs, okay? This just happens to be one of them. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with the fact that I personally don't like it. 600 Strike, as it is unworkable. Yes, there have been fan-made productions of Epic, and I don't doubt that they would have handled this song very differently. The whole point of me adapting this script was to consider how to write the book for a professional production, which comes with its own set of legalities and safety measures that you have to work through just because of work health and safety violations. For those of you who haven't seen the weirdly rendered official animatic, what happens in 600 Strike is Odysseus, having been stabbed with the trident, is being pulled down by the weight of the souls and the guilt and all the people that have died, which is where the choral score comes from. And then in 600 Strike, Odysseus pulls the trident out of his chest and opens the wind bag, which has been a whole thing about how he can't open it again or he'll never get home, blah, blah, blah. He straps the wind bag on and then uses it as a jetpack to overpower Poseidon and stab him with his own trident many, many times. And now, as a concept, this is very, very funny. On stage, the only way to pull exactly that off is to have Odysseus in a harness and on wires, zooming around the stage, trying to stab Poseidon with a trident. That's a hilarious concept. I would pay money to see that. The issue is, hilarious is not what this song is going for. Even if we set aside the issue of will the very funny effect of doing exactly that on a stage break the audience's suspension of disbelief and connection to the story, this song still isn't possible to do. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that we do the song exactly as it's been done in the animatics. We will need wires. We will need a trident. We will need possibly the balcony of our set. Our first issue is the trident. A trident is a weapon. Even this bad boy, which is made of silicon, is still considered a weapon. And depending on where you're staging this, legally you may need a weapons case to be able to use it in the show to store it when it's not being used. But no matter where the production is, using a weapon requires fight choreography and fight calls. For a song like 600 Strike, after this choreography had been learned, this song would need regular fight calls throughout rehearsals and performances to make sure this choreography did not change. We're talking once every 2 to 3 days minimum. Which leads me to our second issue, the wires and harness. The thing about using wires is, in a stage context, it's slightly different for circus, but again, that's a whole thing. The thing about using wires is that you can only rehearse in them for around 10 minutes at a time, maximum. This is because being in the harness for longer than that can cause blood circulation issues and lightheadedness. All of this is according to health and safety legal guidelines that have to be enforced by stage managers, which I have had verified by Beck, the stage manager at the National Theatre. If you need to rehearse the choreography over and over again once it's been learned, at least every 2 days, and you're only allowed to rehearse it for 10 minutes at a time, how do you even put it together in the first place? How do you put in the hours and hours of work that this song needs? Which brings me back to my first point, which is that even if we did somehow find a way to work around all the safety constraints and rules that are there to keep the actors safe, will the song even make sense to the audience? Can it be staged without the hilarity of a guy zooming around trying to stab someone with a trident, ruining the moment? And to be honest, I don't think it can. The 600 strike you hear in Epic the Musical, as it has been released, is only suitable for cinematic purposes. We've seen it work very well on the screen, but the same effect won't tell the same story on a stage. My other issue with putting this song on stage is that it's not actually the final climax, but Odysseus's confrontation where he stabs Poseidon over and over is very graphically violent, and that messes with the tension scaling for his confrontation with the suitors. This can be more easily ignored in an animation or a movie, but not so much on stage. And to have Odysseus's final confrontation be the climax that it is, 600 strike kind of takes away from that. No matter where you place this on a stage, no matter how you do the windbag jetpack thing, there's no way to show Odysseus's windbag trick and attack on Poseidon in a way that makes sense, is safe for the actors, and conveys the epicness of the scene. Which, in case you forgot, were our 3 priorities that I talked about when I started doing this. We're not giving up. We have already adapted 34 of 40 songs into this script, and we are not giving up now. Which begs the question, if, as I say, and I do say, 600 strike is impossible to stage, what can be done instead? So the first option is Jorge rewrites all of 600 strike, which isn't an option because I can't just ask internationally renowned songwriter Jorge Rivera Herons to rewrite one of his songs in his well-acclaimed, successful concept album just because I know it's unstageable. Okay, so our actual options are: cut the song entirely and write dialogue between Odysseus and Poseidon that still has their confrontation happen, but in a way that doesn't involve using the windbag as a jetpack and stabbing Poseidon to near death. Or use the backing track from 600 strike and rework the scene around a different trick from Odysseus that doesn't involve the windbag as a jetpack and stabbing Poseidon to near death. We can throw around some alternate plot lines or plot points such as divine intervention. Either Athena or Zeus, after their altercation earlier, enter and go, "Hey Poseidon, what the fuck?" We could do Odysseus was tricking Poseidon so that he could grab the trident as Poseidon's powers. It's also known as the Little Mermaid trick. The first one is derived in a sense from elements of the Odyssey, but those 2 plot points I feel are probably the options that are most consistent with the story. I mean, you could pull a Jorge and throw in a completely out-of-pocket idea, such as Odysseus using the windbag as a jetpack. Such as, I don't know, Poseidon's wife showing up and they have an argument and Odysseus escapes. I wouldn't use that one, but you get my point. Or maybe Telemachus shows up in his little boat because he's back from his journey and he gets involved. I did consider this idea because it would have been a good replacement for a scene I'm going to talk about in a minute, but there's no way to have that happen and also resolve Odysseus and Poseidon's conflict in a cathartic way. What I eventually decided on for my script is to have the whole thing be a trick by Odysseus to get the trident and therefore Poseidon's powers and most favourite artifact away from him, mostly because it can fully resolve Odysseus and Poseidon's conflict without someone else getting involved, and also because it's possible to use the existing music for 600 Strike and rework the lyrics and interaction a little bit to preserve the epicality of the scene. It also means that the scene will rely far more on the actors and their dynamic rather than special effects, which is always nice. The other thing I'm also concerned about with 600 Strike as a professional production is whoever's playing Odysseus is going to be doing that role 8 shows a week. And if in every show he's screaming 600 Strike and that incredibly hoarse monologue bit, that's really bad for the voice box. And he still has several more songs to go before the end of the show. Like, the reason I don't like this song is because genre-wise it doesn't fit into the rest of the musical, and also every time I hear it I can't take it seriously because I'm like, Jorge, please stop screaming, stop doing this to your voice box. Just don't. So the script can go a little something like this. Odysseus pulls the trident from his chest, flips it, and holds it aloft in triumph. The sea chorus stop holding on to Odysseus. Odysseus returns to his raft and picks up the wind bag. How on earth did he survive that? What are you doing? Poseidon runs down the stairs, making his way through the rapidly moving sea chorus, trying to get to Odysseus. Odysseus points the trident at Poseidon's throat. You don't get to swim any closer. Your days of tormenting me are over. You cannot control me. I am a god. I don't think you seem to get it. I can't afford to die, 'cause I will get back to my son, and I will get back to my wife. You'll summon a storm? Well, it's in this bag. Try and kill me again, and I'll make you beg for mercy. All right, but you can't, 'cause your weapon's in my hand. You can't kill me with that, mortal. You can't kill me at all. But I can run far, I can sail fast, I can bury this trident where no one will ever reach it. You wanted ruthlessness? Well, that's what you got. How does it feel to be helpless? For every comrade and every friend, almost all of whom were slaughtered by your hand, you can't give them back. So you won't have this back. Unless what? You promise never to harm my island. You promise never to cross me or my men. Promise me I'll get back to my homeland, then you'll see your trident again. Give it back! Swear it. I swear. Swear it on the sticks. But that's an unbreakable oath. I know. Swear it. I swear on the sticks I will not stop you from getting back to your kingdom alive. Odysseus drops the trident into the waiting arms of the sea chorus, who carry it to Poseidon. The sea chorus snatch the wind bag from Odysseus and also give it to Poseidon. After everything you've done, how will you sleep at night? Next to my wife. Poseidon exits. The sea chorus carry Odysseus off as they all exit. Do you remember my edited dialogue from the Circe saga? Her instructions about the underworld and the river Styx? By linking that in, I fixed this being a plot hole, and because I planted the seeds earlier. This is what I mean about adapting being a challenge, which leads me to
Song 36, The Challenge.
we are back at the Palace of Ithaca, and after 2 whole hours of this musical, we finally meet Penelope. And she's wearing her veil. She also has her loom carried on by her chorus with the shroud she wove for Odysseus' father. A fact that many epic listeners wouldn't know because that information is conspicuously absent. Well, the fact that she wove it for Odysseus' father isn't actually important. There's a lot of very pertinent information relevant to the musical plot that is missing from this song. And as much as I love Jorge's songwriting, here are some facts that this song is missing. Number 1, the suitors caught Penelope unthreading the shroud and made her finish it. She could have kept that con going until Odysseus came home if they hadn't threatened one of her servants into snitching. 2, the suitors have been living there for 4 years. That's how long she has delayed them already, and also how long Telemachus has known them. I, for all my talents, am not a songwriter. I can't write my own songs for shit, but I am a poet and I can arrange music. With just some rearranging of the lyrics and changing some of the words, the song now has these 2 imperative pieces of information in it. The only difference is maybe 8 bars of music is in a different place than it used to be, and there's a couple of extra lines in the first verse. I'm not criticizing this song at all. I think it's a very useful piece of exposition. We finally get to see Penelope, and it's a succinct, prettily sung way of showing us the challenge. Remember, my first priority was making this make sense, and that includes every single future audience member who doesn't know anything about Epic or the Odyssey. If you're watching this and you haven't seen Epic and don't know anything about the Odyssey, why are you here? Why did you watch this far? That's insane. Anyway, at the end of this song, the unity of action that we had going for us in the first act is completely broken. We have 4 different plot lines. We have Odysseus and wherever he is after his conflict with Poseidon. We have Telemachus, who's looking for his father and a way to get rid of the suitors. We have Athena and whatever she's doing after God Games. And we have Penelope and her challenge, which is a con, because she's also a lying liar. Yeah, that's right, I said it. Penelope is a lying liar. And we love her for it. We have these 4 separate plot lines, and at the end of the next song, they all come together at once with very little warning. Now, this can be workable on a screen where it isn't mentioned, because you can have shots cutting to these other plot lines while Antinous is going on and hold him down and then cut back to him and it still makes sense. You can't do this in a theatre, which is why I have added a whole new dialogue scene between the end of the challenge and the beginning of Hold 'em Down. Odysseus is washed up on the beach. He washes up at the same time Telemachus returns from his little journey early because he hasn't heard anything. Telemachus, being a nice young man, goes to help the man who's washed up on the beach, and then this happens. Are you all right, sir? I'm sorry. Who are you, young man? I am the Prince of Ithaca, the land you stand on. We have no king. My father's been away for many years. I'd invite you to be a guest at our palace, but my mother's suitors take up all of our halls. Telemachus? Good. Odysseus, you've made it, although in rough shape. Telemachus, you're here. We have to go, quickly. Odysseus? But that makes you my father. All my life I'd have died to... We have to go. We're running out of time. What? Why? Your mother's in danger. Now, this scene does not need to be sung, because if Telemachus had the chance if his mother wasn't in immediate danger, this would have been a prelude to I Can't Help But Wonder. It establishes that Telemachus let Odysseus into the palace and he didn't get scared when some random guy who looks like a beggar showed up and starts murdering people, because that's scary. This is also showing Athena's character arc as well as telling it. She's learning. She's growing up too. She's seeing what a father-son relationship should be, or at least should be in the circumstances that Odysseus and Telemachus are in. It's the theme!
The themes!
Anyway, now we can head to...
Song 37, Hold Them Down.
See, when I got to this song in our stage adaptation, I felt that we were missing something. We didn't actually get to see the challenge. I mean, sure, we saw the axes, because Penelope's chorus comes on and reveals the axes, but we didn't actually get to see the challenge, as in the suitors attempting to string the bow and shoot through the axes at the target. In the song The Challenge, there isn't that much time for that to actually happen. But I think it is completely necessary. The time it takes in both songs to talk about the challenge is less than 30 seconds. And that's just talking about the challenge. And yet it is such an important part of the story in general. I don't think you can have an adaptation of the Odyssey, no matter how much creative license taken, without some sort of portrayal of the challenge. Not only that, you have to make it clear to the audience what is going on. This is less of a fun theatre magic thing and more of a safety thing, just for anyone directing this show to think about, is how do you have 12 prop axes on a stage where they won't fall over and hurt anyone? And how do you have archery on a stage where real archery would be incredibly dangerous? It is an archery challenge, and we do need to show it, which means there does need to be some elements of archery. There are some options. The first is fake archery with the little rubber ends on the arrows. This would take a bit of practice on the actor's part to get right, because archery, whether fake or real, is still quite difficult. The second is the Hamilton technique of miming or holding the arrow, or bullet in Hamilton's case, but arrow in ours. Hamilton's writing and choreography is somewhat based around that concept in the 10 dual commandments, and while that would make this a lot safer and more skillful, as our cast is trained in physical theatre and not in archery, it doesn't quite suit how we've constructed the piece in general, because there does need to be weapons, and having some weapons but not others just doesn't make any sense. This is, of course, all operating under the premise that there is at least some portrayal of the challenge actually taking place, and not just Penelope mentioning it and then going into this song. I had to think long and hard about how to do this, because I did think it was necessary to portray the challenge, but I couldn't write it in there unless I was sure that it could be done safely. There is no climax without a build-up, and no retaliation without an unjust challenge. Do you want to know what eventually solved this issue? Gaston. You heard me right, Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. In the 2025 Australian musical tour, Gaston, in his titular song, Gaston, shoots an arrow when it is claimed to be no one. Like Gaston. Except the arrow was not fired from the bow, because that wouldn't be safe. No, he simply drew back and forward again with his bow as if it had fired without letting go of the arrow or the string, and a mechanism with an arrow popped out of the target. It was a very simple mechanism too. All of this would require for a bow to be strung in between the two songs, or two different prop bows, one with a string and one without, and an extra repetition of the lines, whoever can string the king's old bow, and blah 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 blah, which adds approximately 12 seconds to the show, to have the challenge being done before we get into Hold 'em Down proper. Naturally, if this challenge takes place at the back of the stage, underneath the balcony of my set, or wherever alternate sets would place it, and the suitors, when they give up the challenge, gather at the front of the stage, Odysseus, Telemachus, and Athena can enter from the back. And naturally, where the other suitors failed the challenge and knocked the axes out of place, or simply could not draw back the bow far enough, Odysseus succeeds, and then they eavesdrop on what the suitors are saying. While the suitors are busy chanting, "Hold them down," Odysseus and Telemachus get Penelope's servant chorus to take her away to keep her safe, and Athena removes all the weapons that the suitors have. Everything that needs to happen can happen in the background of this song because we know how and we know why. Other than what Odysseus and the gang will be doing in the background of this song, there is something else written into the script that I want to address. I have called the female ensemble members in these past two songs the servant chorus rather than the slave chorus. This is not to gloss over the fact that they were slaves or to try and erase the history of treating other human beings as property, as they are in the texts and in many eras of history. It's simply to make these roles a little easier to bear. There are already many texts and many roles that have such degrading names for women as character names, as things that those characters are called. And there are already so many roles in musical theatre that are difficult to play as a modern actor because of what they are. I've called them the servant chorus because this is one of this ensemble's most minor appearances in Epic, and I don't want to make their jobs even harder, because if I was auditioning for this as a professional production, I know I would have an issue with being called the slave chorus for a part where I don't get to speak or sing. I am just there to make the plot happen. I know that some actors would say no on the basis of being addressed as the slave chorus for no conceivable reason other than historical accuracy. For this reason, I have chosen to call them the servant chorus, just because of how it's framed in Epic.
Song 38, Odysseus.
Other than the special effects, I haven't changed a whole lot about this song other than Athena being involved somewhat in the fight and a couple of lyrics. For special effects, simply as a practical choice, I would avoid using fake blood up until this point because fake blood is a pain. Most killings or wounds happen very quickly, and Odysseus doesn't stick around long enough to see the aftermath, so there's really no point because it would ruin everyone's costumes and lose its effect on the audience. This is not a slasher film. That is not necessarily the case with this final confrontation, which of course begins with Antinous getting shot in the neck by Odysseus. This is of course quite possible. You just need a fake arrow shaft. At the end of his song, when Antinous goes hold him down, he can turn back to the axes, pause, grab his neck, turn to the front, and then fall. And it still looks like he was shot. I mean, you'd want an actual fake arrow and not a chopstick, but you get the point. Odysseus then shoots upwards and the lights go out for the most part. Now, I did say there would be fake blood. There will be bodies. There will be many fight calls to make sure these scenes are safe and continue to be safe. But the audience don't need to see every act of violence. Most of this song will be in the dark, only lit up in spotlights on people or read all over for chaos. Having tableaus or non-contact fight choreography is not only much safer for the actors, but also serves to keep the audience connected somewhat to what's going on. They're not turned off by excessive violence, they only get flashes of the most important images of the scene. It's also convenient to have dark outside of the spotlight so they can't see when a character that's supposed to be dead gets up and then joins in elsewhere to be killed again. A small thing I've changed in this song is the way Telemachus offers mercy to the suitors in the armory. It's 2 lines, one because it bothered me, the other one to make it rhyme. In the current version of the song, Telemachus says, "I don't want to hurt you, but trust me, I've come prepared." However, I have changed it to "Throw down your weapons, it's your last chance to run," followed by "Your very presence has doomed the king, young prince, we're not nearly done." The reason being is, I don't think Telemachus wouldn't want to hurt them. They bullied him and tormented him and made him feel unwelcome in his own home. I think Telemachus might not want to kill them necessarily, but that he wants them out of his house. And if they're not going to leave, he will have to kill them. This also mirrors a character in the Odyssey that Odysseus warned to get out because he was the son of a friend of his, but he didn't and was killed by Telemachus. I didn't change it for accuracy though. I changed it because it makes more sense. Telemachus is about to kill a lot of people with zero hesitation, and he can't do that if he doesn't want to hurt them. The math isn't mathing. With the incredible choral score at the end that is truly the moment of climax for this play, this is where we get our final moments of violence, the true monstrosity of slaughter. And instead of senseless violence, like tons of movement and chaos and rivers of blood splashing across the stage, it should be very still. Image after image, tableau after tableau of the killing, so that the audience remember exactly what they see. This is what war does to a person. This is what a monster is.
Song 39, I Can't Help But Wonder.
Okay, we're done with all the graphic violence. There's still fake blood all over the floor and dead bodies everywhere, and Odysseus and Telemachus have some on them, probably. But we can finally come full circle from earlier. Telemachus has grown up. He can understand his father. He's been through war just like Odysseus. They are the same, and he can finally sing his song. Athena isn't going to interrupt this time. Then Telemachus leaves to go and speak to his mother, and Odysseus and Athena are left alone on the stage, which leads to their moment, no hourglass time dimension needed. Telemachus comes back out onto the stairs, and then he and Athena are downstairs, and Odysseus and Penelope are upstairs, where the other lights go down, and then that's their last song.
Song 40, Would You Fall in Love With Me Again?
Penelope is still veiled, by the way. We still haven't completely seen her face yet. I was very conflicted on how to adapt this song. It's the end of the concept album, but it doesn't feel like a real ending. Because there's so much that goes unresolved and unsaid, especially about both Penelope and Odysseus' character arcs. As an adaptation from the Odyssey, Jorge has chosen to frame this scene very differently to the actual text. And the way this interaction takes place makes Epic's story and characters a little bit unclear. The reason it comes off as unclear, especially when taking into account a theatre script rather than an animatic, is because Epic doesn't have a whole lot of subtext. There's lots of symbolism and motifs that keep cropping up, but there's not a lot that goes unsaid. Whereas this song either has no subtext and is exactly what these two characters are saying to one another, or there's a whole lot of subtext there that you need to unpack to understand the scene. So I had to make some choices. There are 2 possible plot lines here. There's the interpretation from Epic Fanon, where Penelope knew exactly who it was and didn't doubt for a second that it was Odysseus who had come home. And while all the murder was going on outside, she put on her best dress and jewelry, etc. This version of Penelope is offended that Odysseus would ever think that she wouldn't want him anymore, and that's why she tests him with the trick about the living bed, because he's being wishy-washy about it. But part of me still thinks that Penelope is lying. Does she truly recognize him, or is she still afraid it's a stranger that looks like him? None of this is answered in the text in favor of the love story, which is great, but it's ultimately not what this musical is truly about. And then there's the plot that I'm more familiar with, which is where Penelope doesn't recognize Odysseus and needs to be sure who he says he is. I mean, he looks like a stranger. He's been through a lot. She asks him that question because it is the foundation of their relationship, the root of everything. The problem is, if this is the storyline that's intended to be an epic, there's no moment of non-recognition. Her first line to him is it you? Have my prayers been answered? And then she immediately says how he looks different. It's confusing. It's still confusifying. It's so confusifying, I'm using the word confusifying. That's why the subtext is such an issue here. It's difficult to take this song at face value, but for 90% of this musical, there hasn't been much, if any, subtext. Personally, I think the moment where Penelope looks at Odysseus and doesn't recognize him serves the story of Epic much more than when she does. It's the completion of Odysseus's entire character arc. He got home, but he had to become a monster. He had to become someone his home didn't recognize to do it. Yes, I am saying that Penelope is Odysseus's home. She, just as equally as he, has given up on open arms and warm welcomes because they were never received, or if they were given, they were abused. They both have to learn to fall in love with each other again. He can't see her face. How will they recognize each other? This is what makes sense, and it's what serves the epicality of the story, like our priorities were at the start of this. The reason I was so conflicted is if I adapted to the plotline I know, the one that better serves this story, am I taking away from a potentially even more cathartic ending to the story because it's difficult to understand? Should I trust that the narrative choices in this song make sense even if they don't make sense upon first listen? Do I trust that the audience will understand this, or do I shift things a little so that they can be understood a little easier? Ultimately, I decided to rearrange this song a little bit to fit the plotline that's more similar to the Odyssey than it is to the current version of Epic. Most of the lyrics are exactly the same. Some of the verses are in a different order, and the song reads more like a conversation. The way it sounds in the current version is like two overlapping monologues. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I've reworked it to have the moment where Penelope doesn't recognize Odysseus and he realizes he can't see her face. The reason being is that this ending suits the narrative style of the rest of the musical and makes the story whole. Penelope gets more of a character arc. She gets to change throughout the narrative instead of being the idealized version of her that Odysseus expected to return to. And at least in this way, it shows how both of them have changed in similar ways, and Penelope feels more like a realized character. I know that the current ending is very emotional and cathartic to a lot of listeners, but I am sure that had Jorge adapted it with the interpretation that I have changed it to now, the album would still have the same catharsis for those who do understand it. I'd rather have a clearer stance on what's going on in the scene and the story that every audience member can understand than one that serves a version that only some know enough about to unpack. In any case, Penelope doesn't take her veil off until she announces, "I will fall in love with you over and over again. I don't care how, where, or when." And this is when Odysseus can finally relax. He can finally let down his guard. After 20 hellish, goddamn, awful years, he is home, and so is she. And of course, the song ends with them sharing a kiss as the lights go out. This isn't the end of the video, though I still have more, and if you want to find out, you better keep watching. Because this isn't the end of the musical. No, we still have loose ends to tie up. Like, what happened to all those dead bodies? Where are Athena and Telemachus at? Is Athena going back to Olympus, or did her dad kick her out of the house? These are questions that need to be answered. And in some of the animatics, they can be pretty quickly answered with just a panoramic animation or drawing that shows everyone else and their endings. But we can't just do that in theatre. Which is why I've written a short and sweet scene between Telemachus and Athena that answers all three of these questions. I'm happy my dad is home and all, but what are we gonna do with all these dead bodies? These men, they may have become strangers in the end, but I knew them. They have families. What will happen to them? I've tried to make things right where I could. I asked my father. Your father? Yes, my father, Lord Zeus, will order the families of these men to peace. They won't harm you anymore as long as they're burned and buried. Tell your father thank you. And thank you. For what? You brought my father home. You saved me. What would I not be thanking you for? He brought himself home. But you made it happen. No favor of the King of the Gods could ever surpass that. I think you're the only one who would say that. Maybe. But someday they'll tell the tale of my father and me, and your father and you. They'll tell the tale of how he got home and what the world is because he did. Someday, everybody will listen. And look, it might seem a little cheesy, and it can definitely be workshopped if this ever manages to get into rehearsals with a real cast, but it's really just driving home the point of fathers and sons can only be one outside of each other's shadows. You leave your father's house and you make your own. In Telemachus' case, he saves his own. And in Athena's case, she fights with her father, but she makes up with him. A hero's journey is meant to make one unrecognizable, and yet we still tell the tale. It's not about good or evil or empathy. It's about the experiences that change us and our families. And the crowd goes wild. At this point, we have all our characters and they come on for bows, and we hang like a new little banner with the sigil of Ithaca, and it's all cute, and then that would be the end of the show. So I guess, finally, I should answer the question in the title of this video. Epic the musical, can it be done? And the answer is yes, it can. Don't get me wrong, if you were to take the concept album as it is with zero editing and put it on a professional stage, no, you couldn't do it. There needs to be some of the really important dialogue in there, and 600 Strike needs reworking so that it's safe to do on stage. But those changes can be made. It can also be done with less changes than I made with this version of the script. I chose to make more changes than was strictly necessary just to get a version that could make a functional production with Epic, because I care about the story. I care about the characters and the themes and the beauty of what's gone into making this story, and it's because I care that I believe it can be made better. In art, things change when being adapted into different mediums, and there is so much to be said for putting this story, this musical, on a stage that it would be sad to use this new medium and not to change anything. That being said, even if it's theoretically possible to stage this production, whether or not it can happen comes down to money. Yeah, we live in a capitalist society, and until we overthrow the systems of power and disestablish money as a form of oppression, this is what it comes down to. It's very difficult to get the funding to properly make an initial run of the production, especially one as this one that requires so many people and safety measures. But with Epic the Musical being such a global phenomenon, there are some options. I'm entirely the wrong country for this, actually, but a lot of productions often start with grant funding. Governments and arts companies and art centres often have grants specifically for people making art, such as putting together a musical production. I'm not sure how that would work in the US, where Jorge is based, but for a production this size, you'd need a lot more than grant funding alone. Which leads me to method 2, crowdfunding. There have been a few musicals that were partially crowdfunded in their initial production runs, and it's a fairly common practice for indie shows to source extra funding. But with Epic, that has become a global phenomenon with millions upon millions of streams, this can be a huge boon to getting a production off the ground running. And then there's method 3, trying to make a deal with a production company that will fund the initial run in exchange for portions of the ticket and merch sales. Like I said, I am on entirely the wrong side of the planet for this. I have no idea how this would work in the US. I do know that some musicals get picked up by production companies. For example, last year's run of Hadestown here in Australia was produced by Opera Australia and Jones Theatrical Productions to bring it here. Anything that's owned by Disney is usually produced by Disney Theatrical Productions LLC because they're everywhere. But a production company would make things significantly easier in terms of organising the safety measures, rehearsal spaces, hiring all the staff that we need to get a production running, including costuming, props, sets. However, I would completely 100% understand if Jorge did not want to sell out to a company. I mean, especially given what happened with the first iteration of Epic and those sagas. There are a lot of larger corporations that are a little bit money grabbing. I just want to finish this video off by reminding everyone of another Greek mythology musical, and no, it's not Hadestown, The Lightning Thief, a musical that was produced by a community and youth theatre company that went on to a national tour in the US. And don't get me wrong, I admire the tenacity which the makers of the Lightning Thief musical persisted in making it happen. It went so far for such a small production. I have enjoyed watching the bootleg. One of my favourite songs is We're Lost in the Woods Somewhere in New Jersey and We're Never Gonna Make It to LA. I have, in the year since I finished making this script, become aware of a fan-made production of Epic. I don't know a whole lot about it, but it definitely wasn't professional, or they wouldn't have been it, because there are no rights to this as far as I'm aware. I'm sure they did a great job with what they had, but I'm not associated with that version of the show, and this video was how could Epic the Musical be done professionally? Which is why I just want to end this with, this musical is not The Lightning Thief. There are some elements, if they can't be done and done well, you should consider whether this musical is going to be worth putting on. If it were to happen, it should happen with professionals to professional standards. Can Epic the Musical be done? Yes. How will it be done? I don't know. I don't own it. Talk to Jorge. I live on the other side of the planet. I am happy to send him my script and help collaborate making it happen however I can. But if it were to be made here, it's not going to go anywhere if it starts in Australia. Also, where's the money for that? Talk to Jorge. Mr. Rivera Herons, if you're somehow watching this, I am so sorry if I mispronounce your name at any point. And I'm also sorry because a lot of this video must seem very critical. I could go on for hours about how much I love the songs of Epic, and I did this out of love for the project, and I hope you can see that. Please let me work on this project. I'm begging you, please hire me. Anyway, that's it. If you have any questions about the script or this video, our ask box is Spill Your Secrets at Elusive Studios on Tumblr, or if you're a loser who doesn't have Tumblr, you can email us at elusivestudio@gmail.com. Or like and subscribe to these videos if you want to see more Epic the Musical content. Peace out.